it takes months to negotiate. What do you say?
Show me your budget, I'll show you mine.
Why would you put the economics of America in jeopardy? Why would you play political games? I'm not. It sounds pretty childish to me.
President Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy clashing ahead of their high-stakes meeting in just about 2 hours from now to discuss spending and the debt limit. Indiana Republican Senator Mike Braun joins us now. Senator, thanks for being with us. Okay, the president says,
my pleasure.
I'm not going to budge. Speaker McCarthy meets with him today. What does McCarthy have to do to get the president to budge?
Well, this to me is typical D.C. Political speak, because we all know that what's happened over the last 2 years, the political enterprisers that put us in peril. Look at all the debt we're currently sitting atop of. McCarthy has got a fragile balance within his own caucus, but I think has the merits of the case on his side. There are only 3 or 4 of us in the Senate that have ever run anything of any magnitude, have had to be accountable for all the stuff you're talking about. Ron Johnson, Rick Scott, and I, maybe another 1 or 2. We know how this is going to end. If we don't get off the current trajectory, you go through something like a Chapter 11 that any other entity would go through. Here, I think there's going to be a stalemate. We'll take it right down to the edge again of the drama of, closing the government down and all that stuff. That's mostly for show. Sooner or later, the laws of economics, the heavy weight of these numbers, the fact that interest will be as much as defense or either domestic discretionary spending, Medicare trust fund goes broke, you'll make those decisions. My prediction is we won't do anything preemptively. This same song and dance will go forward.
Senator Braun, if I may ask you, the big criticism right now with respect to how McCarthy is approaching this is he's speaking globally, and many people are saying, well, you need to give us a list of what the spending cuts would actually be so we could understand what you're talking about. Even the president said, I'll show you my budget if you show me yours, or whatever he exactly said. But having said that, I went through the reconciliation bill that was just passed, and there were loads of things in there that I can point to, for example, that probably could have been cut. For example, a green energy provision. $3 million went to Baltimore for an eco-village. There was a lot of spending on things that states should have been handling themselves. $2 million for a town hall in Middleburg, Virginia. Funding wokeism, $475,000 for an organization called RAISE at Ohio University. They're sponsoring activist professors. If he can, make a list of things in the budget that he wants to cut, wouldn't that make the process easier?
Well, it would, and there are thousands of them. The sad thing is, many of those added together probably aren't going to do what you need to do to systematically take it down across the board. For Republicans, we're going to have to look at the waste in the Defense Department. That's sacrosanct. I think it's the most important thing we do, but they ought to do budgets. They ought to do audits. They recently did one on their assets. $3.5 trillion could only locate 39% of them. It's naive to think that if we don't put some of that on the table, the political enterprisers are going to do it all on the domestic side. So I think you can get to those specifics. There are a lot of them to add up, but if nothing else, why don't you just take it to where it was the year before? Everybody seemed to be happy with that level, or maybe a year or 2 before, because if you don't, these $1.5 trillion deficits are going to swamp the system over time.
Senator, I want to pivot topics with you quickly. You're leading, of course, a resolution to challenge Biden's new ESG rule, which you say is putting Americans' retirement savings at risk. You also say that there's a floor vote guaranteed. It can pass Congress with simple majorities in both chambers. Can you give us an update?
Sure. I did that same thing, if you recall, months ago on the vaccine mandate, forcing employers down to 100 employees. Then the Supreme Court weighed in, thank goodness. Here, we're in almost as good a shape. I'll need another Democrat or 2, just 1, to get it to where there'll be a floor vote. They're doing the same thing in the House. We're going to get the floor vote. I mean, to actually send it to the president's desk. So we've accomplished a lot just in 1 week. And think about all we're saying is don't force the $12 trillion that are under management in 401ks to have to take into consideration or consider the woke agenda. That's about a 2% difference on return. Do the math, 2% of 12 trillion, that's a lot of money. We shouldn't be having that as a criterion for managing hard-earned savings of Americans across the board. This is going to get a hard vote for everyone in the Senate. The House is going to do the same thing. Hopefully we get one more Democrat on the floor to vote for it. Then it goes to Biden's desk.
Senator Braun, thank you so much. Great to see you today.
You bet. My pleasure.
All right, let's take